Well, thank you very much. I'd like each of the three of you to respond, if you would, to the specific question I asked in my opening statement, and that is, look, we've all given long speeches here today about the problem. We know what the problem is. We know what the difficulties are, the challenges are, and we all want to do something. And the question I have for each of you is what is that what? What is it that is specific? There's been a reference made to some of the things that we've done. Certainly, financial pressure is something that's important, but those are hard to do and even harder to enforce. So maybe each of you could give me a short statement of what you think the specifics are. Starting with you, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Senator Risch. I believe that the most important aspect is to have a paradigm shift in terms of what type of support is needed. For a long time, most of the support has been focused on development issues and thinking that strengthening civil society is the way to go for the moment when democracy knocks the door to our countries. But now we know that that is not going to happen without a struggle, without a fight, without the support for those people who are willing to put their lives, their freedom at risk. And this is what I call the concept of freedom society. We need to identify the movements, the people, the individuals, the activists that are willing to stand up against the regime. It's critical to have internal pressure. Democracy transition requires the pressure from the inside. People want to be free, but people require the support from countries like the United States. And this is support that can be translated in different types of aspects that are critical. Of course, resources, capacity to communicate. And I mentioned one that I believe is critical to every single country that is under an autocratic regime: free and uncensored access to internet. This is something that can be a real game changer. We are today in countries that are under autocratic regimes that are completely closed. People don't have information. They don't have the capacity to effectively communicate. And having free access to uncensored internet and to affordable smartphones can be a real game changer. And I know that this requires some technological improvements. But in the same way that the world came together to find a vaccine for COVID-19, I believe that the world and the free world needs to come together to provide free access to internet. This will give the possibility to communicate, to mobilize, and to effectively have a strong position against the autocrats. The second is, I believe that sanctions should be rethought, and they are strategic. There is often a discussion around sanctions that if they should be imposed or not imposed. I don't think that this is black or white. This is sanctions or no sanctions. This is about effective sanctions, and particularly, and I can tell that in the case of Venezuela, it's not only to sanction those government officials or the officials of the dictatorships. It's also to identify the enablers, the individuals, the companies within and without the autocratic countries that are creating this criminal structure of kleptocratic regimes to give the standing to these regimes. So these are some concrete ideas that I think need to be thought of.
Appreciate that. Svetlana, could you give us a couple words?
Thank you. I might reiterate all the Mr. Lopez said, but as for Belarus in particular, I want you to initiate the international tribunal against Lukashenko and his cronies for he doesn't feel impunity for his crimes against Belarusian people and his crimes of aggression. We are asking to increase sanctions on Belarusian regime to punish them, also close loopholes, because usually regimes do have opportunity to use other countries to circumvent sanctions, and it gives them opportunity to survive. We are asking to create coalition of countries for independent Belarus to keep our crisis high in agenda. We are asking to initiate the discussion on Belarus in international organizations. We ask organize hearing on Belarus in G7, UN Security Council, also including the discussion nuclear weapons. Block the regime from taking the seat in the UN Security Council, as I said, send special envoy to Belarus to have constant communication with the government of the USA. Also declare that all the agreements that Lukashenko made since 2020 are illegal, that they will never be recognized by democratic countries, and also speak out in support of Belarusian independence. Now, when our sovereignty is under threat, we see the signs of creeping occupation. It's very important that powerful countries are defending our independence, our sovereignty, and people will feel this. And of course, be vocal about Belarus, because people in our country who are fighting, they need to feel that they are not abandoned, they are not forgotten, and that the world is with them. It gives us inspiration to continue our fight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I have a specific question for you. Had your election actually come to fruition, we know you won, but that doesn't do any good unless you actually take office. We also know that in these countries that repression is only successful because the military, the police, and the security forces obey the orders of the head of state. What's your thought about what would have happened had you taken the presidency? Would you have been able to take command of the military and the security forces?
One of our main tasks is to split elites and split military environment of Lukashenko. But it might happen only when those people inside the regime see that Lukashenko is not recognized. He is losing legitimacy. He is unshakable in a normal democratic world, that there is no future with him. So in that case, they will, at particular moment of our history, they will take the side of people. And we already see these signs. You know that Lukashenko launched a new law that allows him to bring people from nomenclatura and from military service to death penalty if they are accused of state treason. So he's afraid of internal coup d'etat or internal betrayal, and we have to split, these people even more.
Sure. Well, and that's obviously that's a key. If you can peel off major people in the security forces and or the military, that changes the dynamics, because obviously they have the command of the power, and that's where it's at. That's how they keep order. So be interesting to see by looking at the personalities involved there, which ones are the most likely to flip, because that's what's going to change it. There's no question about it. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Senator. I would outline a couple of key points on where we could do better. And the first begins with that paradigm shift of understanding democracy as strategy. It is the most effective return on investment for our national security in a world in which autocracies are on offense attacking democracy. Second, leaning in on innovation. This is where understanding how to leverage technology for democracy. The investments, modest investments we've made in circumvention tools to see a skyrocketing use of VPNs to gain access to the internet, mirror sites to overcome firewall blockages, investments in the next generation of technology, as well as tools like financial forensic skills to track kleptocratic stealing of wealth. Third, really adapting some of our tools. As I said, sometimes our institutions are trapped in project management. And when things change, there's a coup, there's an invasion, we don't need to be trapped by contracts on a project. We need to be focused on how to actually be there with folks in the fight and support them in real time and have that flexibility. Senator Menendez mentioned his efforts behind the Global Heroes Act. This has been a big challenge we've seen increasingly with rising numbers of democracy advocates forced from their countries, pushed into exile. Many countries don't have the capability to support them with visas and able to get them set up. And I think a rapid response among democracies coherently is quite important. And I would also say aligning other foreign aid, economic support funds with the U.S. Development Finance Corporation, MCC. A lot of AID projects are not per se about democracy, but in this world they should be aligned such that they are helping support transitional democracies to deliver for their citizens in this contest. And finally, I would say it's important that we enlist others. Many of our allies, democratic allies, Japan, South Korea, Australia, are generous with development assistance. we need them to be equally generous with democracy assistance. And I think that's somewhere where we can help enlist other partners in this cause, all the while understanding that we have to keep those in the fight in the lead and to recognize it's their agency, their struggle, and we are only behind to support them.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank